Hi, everyone. Welcome to the OONI 10-year anniversary event. It's been an incredible 10 years working on this project. And today we celebrate the 5th of December, 10 years since the first OONI measurement was published. In the course of this presentation, I want to tell you a bit about how we got where we are here today, providing you with some highlights of what has happened in the Ooniverse over the course of these years. So yeah, let's get right into it. Today, OONI is the largest open data collection on internet censorship around the world. Over the course of these 10 years, we've collected more than 1 billion measurements from more than 25,000 different networks in basically every country and territory around the world. Thanks to this big collection of data, we've also had a chance to work on many different research reports, which we have published 76 of them since the project started. Every day, thanks to the many people all around the world running OONiProbe, we collect and publish more than 2 million measurements from more than 120 countries. So I thought it would be nice, marking this 10-year milestone, to start off by taking a bit of a journey backwards through time to see how we got here. And so, yeah, basically, I want to tell you a bit about the story of OONI and, yeah, what has happened over the course of these past 10 years. So I think to understand the birth of OONI, I think we need to travel back to 2011. And 2011 was a very particular year for what was happening around the world, where we saw an unprecedented wave of protests occurring all across North Africa and the Middle East. And throughout this period, we also saw a very sharp increase in forms of internet censorship happening around the world. And specifically in these regions. At the time, me and other people working at the Tor project were looking into these cases of censorship. And just to provide a bit of context, in 2011, Tor bridges had just been released 2 years ago. We didn't have pluggable transports at the time. And so we were basically working on trying to understand how we could make the Tor protocol more resilient to blocking. And some attempts to block the Tor protocol that happened that year that I think are worth highlighting are, the 2 attempts at blocking in Iran through DPI of certain parts of the TLS handshake. In particular, in the beginning, they were looking at a Diffie-Hellman parameter, where the primes that were being used were very specific ones, as well as then the certificate lifetime. This was also the year where we saw Egypt attempting to block Twitter before the whole internet was disconnected. And we also saw brief attempts at blocking Tor through again, DPI of the TLS protocol. So within this context, we were working on trying to investigate and understand what was going on. And the tools that we had at our disposal at the time were effectively a bag of scripts. We had a series of Python or shell scripts that we would give out to people in certain countries, which we would tell them to run. We would tell them then to share the output with us. And through this data that we collected, we were then able to investigate and understand what was happening on their network. And at the same time, the state of internet censorship research was basically split, how I see it, in sort of 2 different areas. So on the one hand, you had this very deep technical, mostly academic research that was done through the publication of research papers that investigated particular forms of filtering that was happening in particular countries or regions. And this provided very interesting and useful technical insight. However, it was limited in scope in that it primarily focused on countries that had especially interesting forms of censorship that provided the opportunity to publish a novel and interesting research paper. It also was sort of limited by the cycles of academic research, which are generally pretty long. And so, we couldn't wait for the next paper to be published in order to respond to an instance of censorship. On the other side, you had the more, let's say, research that was focused on, let's say, enriching social science style research with also technical data. And this was generally had a much wider breadth and scope. So it would focus on many different countries. However, oftentimes, it due to the nature of the work, it omitted certain important technical details that were important for us as practitioners or as people, members of the technical community, to in fact understand what was happening from a technical level. And so, basically, we saw the need to somehow build something that would, on the one hand, bridge the gap between these two communities and offer this rich technical data that could support both research work, but also policy and advocacy efforts. And it should be done in a way that we could tell people to run these things quickly so that we could get the data immediately and start studying it, understanding it. And basically, it grew naturally as an evolution, in a way, of our bag of scripts that we saw earlier into what aimed to be an extensible framework that anybody can use to collect this data and also contribute to as new experiments. And the foundation of this was always that we wanted to do this collection in a way that the data would always be published as open data, so everybody could benefit from it. The methodologies should also be well documented and specified, so people could know exactly what it is that we were measuring and testing. And our, as mentioned before, our motivation for doing this is that we were interested not only in knowing what is being blocked, but also the how it's being blocked, because that's the sort of technically rich information that allowed us to carry out some sort of technical intervention. So we set off these goals. We wrote a paper about it, and we started building the OONI probe. And here, I guess, for some of you who remember, this is what OONI probe was for, I guess, a fair amount of time. It was this command line tool you could install on your computer. You would run it, and it would do a series of experiments, upload all of the data to our collection servers, and then eventually the data ended up on our website in this very simple raw directory listing. You could scrape it to download all the YAML files to do your own analysis. But we also used it ourselves to produce our own analysis. So, this was what was used in order to publish some of the initial papers and investigations using OONI data. But we saw some limitations in this approach. I think one of the biggest limitations was that it was still restricted to mainly a technical audience. So you needed to somehow know how to use the terminal to install this tool and run it in the first place. So the next evolution from that was that we figured, what if we made it a bit easier to run this? So we started building what became known as the OONI Probe 2.0, or the web interface. And the idea here is that what we wanted to get stable longitudinal coverage from as many vantage points around the world. And so the best way to do that at the time seemed to us to have these Raspberry Pi devices that we could give out to people. And these Raspberry Pis would have a web interface that you could connect to, so you could monitor what your probe is doing, as well as trigger some of the tests manually yourself. And that was great. I mean, it supported a lot of different interventions all around the world, where people started distributing these probes, started collecting a lot of data, and it really contributed towards providing us much more stable measurement coverage. At this point, we were somehow, though, unhappy about how the data was being presented. So we felt like this simple HTML index of page was a bit limiting, and it also discouraged in a way people from contributing, because they couldn't really directly see how their measurements were contributing to this pool. Like, it was just a bunch of YAML files on some web server, and so then we built the OONI Explorer. And this was this web interface that basically allowed you to, at a glance, see all the countries from which we had collected OONI measurements at the time. We also had some color coding in place, where we would color certain countries depending on which ones we were able to confirm instances of censorship. And we also had some specific country pages that allowed you to flip through the measurements collected from a particular country. But still, as you can see from this map, we noticed that there were a lot of places where we weren't really getting adequate coverage. So we needed to make it easier for people to run the tool, but also to run it in places where like in certain places, the internet is actually not only fixed line. Like, you might not interact through the internet primarily through a computer. So from this need, we decided that we needed to have a mobile application. But before the mobile application, actually, we noticed that there were some limits in the methodology itself. So the main tool, the main experiment that we were running at the time was called HTTP requests. And this test basically what it did is it did an experiment measurement over the user's network, and as a control measurement, what it used was the Tor network. And the assumption there was that if we get enough measurements, we will most likely exit through a Tor exit that doesn't implement any filtering, and it should be fine. However, what we didn't take into account was the fact that websites might actually be treating Tor connectivity differently. And this is something that, as a matter of fact, even led to a research paper which looked into how Tor users are being treated differently. And as a matter of fact, this research paper even used OONI data to as the foundation for it, showing that our original idea or vision of opening us this data as much as possible so that people could potentially even answer questions that we hadn't even thought of, demonstrated it to be true. But still, it wasn't working so great for measuring network level censorship. And also the other issue that we had with the HTTP request tests is that when there was an issue, we weren't really collecting that rich information. Like, we were only collecting the HTTP request and response information, but not all of the DNS queries and the TCP connects and the TLS handshakes and all this stuff. So we felt the need to reimagine this test. And basically what we did is we introduced this concept of using a test helper as a control. So instead of relying just on the Tor network, we would have this control vantage points that's located in a network that we control. And dynamically, during the testing session, it will perform a control measurement and compare it against the experiment, and also and evaluate if there is censorship in place. And through this test, we also were able to enrich the data format to collect much more verbose information. And so, this test was shipped around 2016. And at this point, we felt like we really had all of the building blocks in place to be able to really focus on getting more people to start using the tool and collecting more data. And so at this point is when we started to create the OONI partnership program. The idea here was basically that we have all these great tools, we have the technical knowledge and insight to be able to interpret the data, but oftentimes we lack the contextual understanding to interpret what those results mean within a specific region or country. And also we lack the human network to be able to adequately promote and ensure that the tool is being deployed and used in all of these countries. So, armed with our Raspberry Pis, our OONI Explorers, and our new web connectivity tests, we set off to form this partnership program, which, at this point has reached 41 different organizations all over the world. And through, the incredible work of all of these organizations, we've managed to do all of the work that we have in all these years. And at this point was when I think also a lot thanks to the input from our partners and community members, that it really started to become a need to have a mobile applications, because in a lot of places around the world, the primary way to access the internet is not through fixed lines, but it's on mobile. And so at this point is when we decided to focus on building a mobile app for Uniprobe, for Uniprobe Mobile. And this was launched in 2017. And I think if we look at the charts for when we launched it, we can clearly see how this effort really paid off. So in January 2017, we were measuring around 60 countries, 3 point something million measurements in 171 networks. And the next month, so following the launch of the mobile app in February, we more than doubled the total number of measurements. We tripled the number of countries covered, and the number of networks covered increased 20-fold. So basically, it demonstrated that there was a huge need for covering measurements on mobile networks, and that if people had the tool, they would use it, and so they did. This was also the same year that, again, from feedback from our community and the partners that we were working with, there was the growing need to be able to coordinate these measurement campaigns without necessarily having to directly interact with us. So up until that point, how it worked is that if you wanted to have, let's say, a certain website tested, you would propose it to the Citizen Lab testing list. We or people from the Citizen Lab would review this and consider if it should be included in the testing list. And if so, it would be merged, and then it would be tested by all Uniprobes. However, there wasn't, this process could be somehow a bit slow. And also, because of how at the time our logic for deciding which measurements, which URLs should actually be tested, you didn't necessarily have the guarantee that your site would be tested. So OONI Run was basically a way for people to independently define what websites they cared to test. And then they could share this mobile deep link with their network of volunteers collecting the measurements. And they would collect immediately the measurements just for the sites that they cared about. And this was very powerful because it enabled a lot of measurement campaigns and investigations that otherwise wouldn't have been possible, because it basically took us outside of being the bottleneck and the ones of deciding what should be tested by whom. Following this, there were a lot of investigations that we carried out. This was the year when we traveled to Cuba to measure internet censorship, and released a short video about our adventures there. It was also the year in which we published a report on the Iran protests and documenting blocks of certain social media platforms there. Another one of the reports that we published in these years was the state of internet censorship in Egypt, which looks at the blocking of many news sites, as well as the use of block pages to serve advertisement and even cryptocurrency mining. It was the years in which we published a great report with together with our partners IPIS and Venezuela Inteligente on the state of internet censorship in Venezuela, just to name a few. Following this, we felt like still we weren't serving so well the technical communities that needed access to the raw measurements and wanted to integrate it into their own tooling. And so following this, we decided to implement an OONI measurement API, which basically would allow machine-to-machine communication for filtering through measurements, searching them, and retrieving the content of them. And following the launch of the API, this was sort of the building block to then eventually construct the new revamped version of OONI Explorer. And one of the main highlights of this new version of OONI Explorer was the ability to search through all of the measurements, filtering the individual measurements also by confirmed and anomalies, opening up a much richer way of inspecting and filtering through the OONI dataset. This was also the year in which measurements started to be published in near real time. So for those who remember the time before this, it would take 24 hours from the moment a measurement was uploaded to our collector for them being available and accessible through our API or our web interfaces. In 2019, through a lot of work on the back end and optimizations, we were able to cut this time down to basically instantaneous. So that was also a very important milestone. Following this, we made a revamp of the mobile app and also released a desktop app, which allowed people to install, have a proper desktop experience for using the OONI app. Other noteworthy reports that followed, I think one important one was the one looking into the blocking of social media in Myanmar following the coup, which was published in 2021. And I think through this and many other reports, we learned a lot about what is the best way to present the data and display it. And following this, we figured that we wanted to empower people to do these charts themselves, so that this type of investigation could be carried out easily by anybody. And so in 2022, just this year, we launched the OONI Measurement Aggregation Toolkit, which is this online platform that you can use to filter through all the OONI data set, slicing it and dicing it by any axis that you desire, and basically build some of the charts that we use in our own research directly from a web interface. And the amount of work that went into building this is incredible. A lot of important backend work also had to happen in order to make it possible just to filter and query and aggregate all of the data in real time. So yeah, it was a very important achievement. Another thing that we launched this year is the test list editor, which is something that has been requested by community members for many years. And it basically, before this, in order to contribute URLs to be tested, you would have to go to GitHub, understand the format of the CSV files, go in and edit them manually, and then open a pull request. And this obviously created a big barrier to entry. And so what we built is basically a web interface on top of this that allows anybody to propose edits to what are the sites that we test. And yeah, it has been a very long needed community request. So this is, I think, a very short recap of what's happened in the last 10 years. It's by no means complete. I omitted a lot of important details, but I think one thing that for sure is important to say is that none of this would have been possible if it weren't for the amazing OONI community, as well as the amazing members of the OONI team that have worked so hard on this project for all of these years. So really, thank you everybody so much. And I was told that I should also say what lies ahead in the future of OONI. So I will now, instead of giving like a long-term vision, which I think is something that is not so easy to do in such a short amount of time. What I will give you is a taste of some of the next upcoming interesting things in the Ooniverse. Yeah, so what that is. So one thing that we've been asked for a very long time is to come up with a methodology for measuring throttling. So by this we mean some sort of targeted interference with the network performance towards specific services or targets. And we started to, in a way, experiment a bit with this in our latest report, looking at the blocks in Russia following the invasion of Ukraine. And we believe that, yeah, we're onto something that could possibly be further automated and systematized. where basically the idea is that we would be collecting richer timing information during all network requests, and then looking at this timing information for some form of anomaly. Similar to what we did there, where we were looking at the read speed during the TLS handshake for Twitter.com, and it proved to be quite effective at detecting such evident and extreme forms of throttling. Another thing that's coming up, which was also one of the things that we've been experimenting with during the last research report, is automating more the process of detecting and characterizing more forms of censorship. So basically being able to fit the blocks that we see into a much bigger set of categories, so that we would be able to say not only it's blocking happening at the DNS level, but it's this specific class of blocking, or it's happening at the TLS level, but it's a man in the middle, or it's your connection being reset. Because depending on what specific outcome you see, some are more likely to be due to some sort of transient network condition, whereas others are more likely to be an intentional form of network interference. Other interesting things that are coming up. So we plan to create a social media censorship alert system. So this is building on some work that we had already experimented a bit in the past, but turned out to be a bit too noisy. So instead, we want to just limit the scope to social media. And the idea here is that we could trigger some alerts when we notice that something starts to be blocked or is unblocked. The other thing is we plan to do many improvements on the existing OONI probe tests. We have one of the big upcoming changes is a new major revision of web connectivity, which at this point is 8 years old. So it's in need of some work, and yeah, we've been thinking about how we would do that, and plan to ship that in the next couple of years. So this was a very brief overview of what's happened in the Ooniverse in the last 10 years. It's also the first of 2 events that will be live streaming related to the 10-year Ooniversary. Tomorrow, there's going to be another event which will highlight some of the accomplishments and achievements from the OONI community. So if you found this interesting, or even if you haven't, you might find tomorrow's one interesting. Please join. It will be on this same channel at 1 p.m. UTC. So I forgot to say at the beginning of this presentation that if you stuck around until the end, I had a surprise. But it's even more of a surprise in this case. So yeah, I wanted to share with you a video that we have put together showing some of the highlights from the last 10 years of OONI. So, get comfortable, pick your favorite snack of choice, and in the meantime, also think about the questions that you might want to ask, which you can leave in the YouTube comments, or you can put them inside of the pad, and or in the OONI Slack channel. But without further ado, I will now show you this video. Okay, there we go. So thank you all for coming to this presentation. I guess I will now take a look at the document with the questions. So yeah, I see the first question is, are there new experiments coming next year? So as mentioned, we definitely have plans to ship a new version of web connectivity, which will either take the form of a whole new experiment or just incremental improvements on top of web connectivity. We also have some other tests that we will likely be shipping, namely tests for VPNs. So the OpenVPN protocol, as well as WireGuard, will most likely be shipping some tests for that. We also have plans to explore the blocking of the QUIC protocol. And that, again, will either take the form of a test added on top of web connectivity, or potentially also some additional tests. We recently got some community contributions for some new tests, which we would like to refine and polish. So somebody has worked on a new IMAP test, as well as a SMTP test, and a BitTorrent protocol test. So we would like to sort of polish those a bit more and potentially ship them next year. So the second question is related to reports. So do you plan to publish more reports? Are there any countries or regions you plan to focus on? So regarding if we plan to publish more reports, the answer is yes, definitely. We plan to publish several more reports. In terms of which countries or regions we are going to be focusing on, we generally don't ahead of time define any specific region or country to focus on. It's more about looking into specific regions or countries when there are particularly relevant and important incidents related to censorship that emerge. So I don't think we can really now say what countries we will be publishing reports on. So the other question is, how can an organization become one of OONI's partners? So that's a great question. We have a process for becoming a partner. I think the best person to speak to about this is probably Maria. So I would encourage you to reach out to her. But in general, we would discuss what the what the needs are for the partner organization, what how OONI can support your work, and on what areas we would be collaborating together. We would then write up sort of MOU defining the scope of the collaboration, and yes, and the link has been shared also in the chat there, where you can learn more. So the other question is, how can a person add a new block page fingerprint if in OONI if they found one that hasn't been detected by OONI probe? Right. So we currently have a specific repository where we're collecting all the block page fingerprints. I can drop the link here in the chat. It should be noted, though, that at the moment, this is not being used by the production data pipeline. Like we're still adding support for it. But the best thing you can do is probably add it to one of those two CSV files by opening a pull request. Or even just filing an issue on that repository so we can get to it. And yeah, once that is done, it should, in theory, once that is done and we have added support to the pipeline for marking these, they should be marked as confirmed in OONI Explorer. So the other question is it possible to measure censorship by region, province, state within a country? Right. So in terms of it being possible, yes, it is possible. However, the challenge that we face at the moment is that the sort of resolution of location information that Uniprobe collects, primarily due to privacy considerations, is only at the country level, or rather the country plus network level. So anything more granular than that will not be collected in the measurement metadata itself. What people have done in the past in order to somehow work around this limitation is that they would specifically conduct measurement campaigns where they would ask the volunteers from specific regions to record the identifiers of the measurements that they ran, so that they could then map them later to a specific region. This might be a bit easier to do in the future with the new version of OONI Run, where you won't have to do, at least some parts of this will probably not need to be done so manually. We have also plans to see if there is some way to support collecting more granular location information in Uniprobe itself without necessarily impacting user privacy as much. But yeah, what I would say is that for the moment, the best thing is probably to collect the report IDs of measurements that were run by people in a specific region, and then use that to figure out which ones were run in a region or not. And yeah, but we have this in mind as a user story that we would like to eventually support. The next question is, are there plans to measure blocking of specific content in social media, such as Facebook groups or TikTok videos? So yeah, this is something that we have been thinking about in the past. It's not something that we necessarily plan to work on in the immediate future, mostly because there are a lot of like it's somehow a bit different in terms of methodology to how OONI works currently. Like you have a whole different set of challenges that you need to address. Namely, if the groups are somehow closed or require logging in order to scrape them, you need to get some accounts somehow, or leverage, I don't know, a browser add-on or something to use an existing user's session, which opens up a whole new plethora of privacy issues. There's also the fact that these platforms generally try to prevent people from scraping them. So you're then fighting against that sort of thing. But yeah, I mean, I think if it does become something that many people are interested in and they think we should work on this, it might be something we could consider doing. So yeah, basically, let us know. Like, if you think this would be valuable, do reach out to us and let us know. And we can consider supporting it. The Raspberry Pi, has it been updated with the new features of OONI in recent years? And how can community members get them? Right, so we do offer Raspberry Pi builds of the OONI command line interface. So basically the setup instructions for the Raspberry Pi are the same for OONI on Linux. We also make ARM v6, ARM v7 builds, so it should work. In terms of community members getting them, so we have actually stopped giving out Raspberry Pis because we basically realized that the system of Raspberry Pi based deployment was really hard to scale. Managing the whole shipment as well as handling the hardware life cycle of these devices was incredibly challenging, and something that we didn't really have the resources to be able to support. Because it's not just a matter of, I mean, it's hard to get these Raspberry Pi to certain places to begin with. Like, just the shipment and logistics around that is a lot of work and very complicated. But also, once you do get the device there, it's not like SD cards after a certain amount of time will die. The OS needs to be upgraded. And yeah, basically handling all of these things is something that we don't really at the moment have the resources to do. So yeah, we decided to rather focus on like the software bit, and maybe one thing to support a similar use case of the Raspberry Pi could be like a cheap Android phone that you configure to run tests automatically. And it should be as good as a Raspberry Pi, if not better, because you have a user interface in it as well. But if you have a specific use case around this, please do reach out to us and we can discuss it and see what could work best for you. So the OONI Partnership Program meetup that did not hold during COVID-19 will hold from next year. So the last OONI partner event, which happened in 2021, was done online as a result of COVID. I can't confirm nor deny if there's going to be an in-person one next year. We would very much like to do one in person, but I can't promise anything at this time. But if you would like to have another meetup, reach out to us. Let us know you would like to have it, and that will definitely motivate us more to ensure it does happen. So I guess Okay. I guess that's more or less the time we had the questions for. Thank you, everybody, for the great questions, for attending this presentation, for being a part of the OONI community, and for an amazing 10 years. So yeah, cheers to another 10 years of OONI. Have a great day, everyone. Bye.